Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings, Hempsters. Welcome to another inspirational Hempisode of HempAware Radio. Tyler Hemp here, your Hempepreneurial host, here to empower and educate your Hempisphere. As always, we focused on what's most important, and as you may know, we love to discuss the benefits and uses of industrial hemp for our food, for our homes, our clothing, our energy applications, and so much more. And so thank you so much for your valuable time with us today. I believe you're going to be thoroughly impressed and thankful to hear about what we're going to be discussing with Tommy Gibbons, COO and co-founder of Hempitecture, currently out of Ketchum, Idaho. And before I bring on Tommy, I just want to say how impressed I am with the Hempitecture team and what they're doing to educate and serve the green building and hemp communities. And in fact, just a few weeks ago, my beloved Hempers and I had the amazing opportunity to attend their first annual Hemp Building Summit over there in Ketchum, Idaho. And I'm so thankful that we did. There was amazing speakers, wonderful demonstrations, several vendors showcasing different hemp construction and building materials. And we actually got to visit several hemp homes and different structures in the local area, which just made me want to have my hemp house even more. And so it's, after experiencing the Hemp Building Summit, which was put on by Hempitecture and the U.S. Hemp Building Association, I'm feeling closer than ever to my vision of having a hemp house. And so with that said, as I mentioned, we have Tommy Gibson, the COO and co-founder of Hempitecture with us today. And he's pretty awesome guy. I briefly got to connect with him and Maddie, his partner, were so busy just organizing this show and putting on such an amazing experience. But he's got a great background and is just doing an amazing job. He comes to Hempitecture. I should have no problem with saying that with all my hemp vocabulary. But anyway, Tommy comes to Hempitecture with experience in corporate finance and growing early stage companies, and he complements this business experience with a green building background that includes certification as a lead green associate and training from France's École Nationale du Chanvre, which is the National School of Hemp in France. Before joining Hempitecture, Tommy worked at Piper and Goldman Sachs, and he graduated from Princeton University with a degree in public policy. And he's now working side by side with Maddie Mead, who's the CEO and other co-founder of Hempitecture. So I'm super excited to have Tommy on the show today. Thank you so much for being with us, buddy.
Tyler, thank you for having me, and that was an incredible introduction.
Right on. Well, we do our best to keep people interested, and it's just been literally a lifelong vision and dream of mine to have a hemp house. And in fact, I got to build with hemp in France for the first time in 2005, and it was one of the most amazing experiences. And ever since then, I've had journals and visionary booklets and mind maps and vision boards where I put all the different aspects and features of the hemp house that one day I will have, hopefully in collaboration with you and the Hempitecture team. Once we find a good location, I'm really looking forward to having my own hemp house and helping thousands, if not millions of others build their dream homes out of hemp in the future. So I'm excited to have you on today's show to talk about Hempitecture and your background and what you guys are doing to serve this community. So to dive right into it, could you share a little bit about your background and where you came from and what led you up to being an integral part of Hempitecture?
Absolutely. And it's funny that you should say your dream is to have and build your own hemp house, because just before this call got started, I was looking at land and thinking to myself of what different hemp building materials I'd want to use, because it's such an irresistible thing to want to do. And I'm also really interested that you started building with hemp in 2005 in France. That's like, that's an original person to get involved. And so that's incredible that you've been in it for so long, and thank you for the support and giving the voice, because that's what it needs. It's a secret that we have about these hemp-based building materials, and we need to get the word out. My background is, I guess, kind of a checkered one. It has a lot of experience that is certainly outside the hemp industry, but also outside the building industry. I worked in finance out of college, as you mentioned, and, there wasn't a tent at the career fair who was offering hemp building or anything like that. It was kind of much more, we all moved out of college in one big cohort to these different financial firms scattered across New York City. And I knew that I felt like I could do more to make an impact on the world. And I saw so many amazing, cool things going on around me in startups and early stage companies, and also in the green energy movement. And, really rethinking our society in the context of how do we, now that we know how humans affect climate change, how can we rebuild our lives in a way that is enjoyable and in harmony with the planet? So I moved out to San Francisco, and I wanted to check out startups, and I taught myself coding, and I was just really interested in knowing more about how things worked. That's something I've always been interested in, and but not so much in the physical world, much more in the digital world. And so I was developing apps and working on different projects with people around the city, and it was good fun doing that until I finally joined a startup that had a little bit more traction, and worked with them for 3 years and really saw them go from 2 people working back to back in a co-working space in the basement of Zynga to a 25-person organization with $10 million of venture funding. And what the company did was build a children's computer that taught kids how to gain confidence working with computers and engineering and STEM. And it was a really, really great mission for the company, and something I felt very strongly about, having just learned about how to code and software development. So from there, though, I was interested in building a hemp home. It's that recurring vision that you mentioned. And I got that interest because I went up to Ashland, Oregon, and attended a tiny home building seminar. And in that seminar, one slide mentioned hempcrete. And I recognized hempcrete because a college classmate of mine had launched a Kickstarter and built the first public hempcrete house in America. And I remember supporting the Kickstarter. I remember that it was in Idaho, and I remember that it stayed in Sun Valley, Idaho, ever since then, because, as college or as high school classmates, we kept in touch and on tabs with one another. So I was intrigued seeing that in Ashland, Oregon, which is, of course, a very forward-thinking, progressive, green building part of the country. And I actually just got an inquiry for a hemp home from someone from Ashland today. So it's funny that it's dug even deeper in that community since I first heard about it mentioned there. And so I contacted Maddie about building a tiny home together. And these conversations just led to unearthing so much more about this building material, the challenges it had to adoption, the opportunities hemp could have in the United States for being a viable alternative crop for a lot of farmers, and being a building material that basically erased a lot of the problems that existed with the current building materials. And Maddie was someone I had so much confidence in, and you've seen him firsthand, and you described that summit so well. I knew he was someone that could motivate and start a movement and inspire people, and people would want to work with and for him. But I also knew that one person couldn't possibly do what he was trying to do alone. And I knew my background complemented his quite well, because he had this big visionary and, really artistic and in seeing things come to life. I mean, the summit alone, he did all of the graphics for that summit in addition to emceeing it, as you saw. It's a full range participation. But I have that spreadsheet background and that accounting background and that startup background and logistics and kind of wearing a lot of hats. And I thought with us together combining forces, we'd be able to elevate ourselves and give this company the legitimacy it deserves. And I also knew that hemp is something that people have a stigma about and probably don't give too much credit when someone says they want to stick pot plants in the walls. I mean, I think, Maddie was not ridiculed, but probably not taken seriously in a lot of the early stages of pitching this business and building this business. And I knew my background, that for superficial reasons, which included an Ivy League school and working at Goldman Sachs, like a high-end financial institution, could bring that legitimacy and credibility that the industry needs. And so more people that have that type of background could join, and we can make this a building material that doesn't just appeal to people who are familiar with hemp, but appeals to people who are familiar with green building and using natural materials.
Exactly. Which leads me, that's a great intro, and I really appreciate you going through the nitty gritty. It's great to hear of a company that, had a vision. And in the Bible, it says, where there is no vision, the people will perish. And having those crucial key points, of expertise coming together, it's amazing what we can accomplish. And so you guys, initially, you saw this tiny home, you connected with Maddie, and what was it exactly that inspired you to say, all right, you know what, we want to start a hemp building company? What was it that initially kind of like got you over the edge to say, this is it, I'm putting my chips in, we're going to make this hempen? What was it for you?
Wow, I'm trying to think of when that decision point occurred, because there were so many things that were going on around that time, changing jobs, changing cities, changing industries. I can't remember. I feel like I knew that I wanted to work on this before Maddie might have known that I was even interested in being a business partner. Mm-hmm. And almost like dating in that sense, it was just a slower, getting to know each other and making sure this is something that could last for a very long time, because close business relationships are incredibly hard, and that's why it's so important to have someone that you can genuinely work well with and grow with. So exactly. I don't know. We were supposed to go out and visit Sun Valley, Idaho in February. I was supposed to come out of 2018, 2018. And I wasn't able to come out, but he ended up coming to San Francisco a few weeks later and gave a presentation on Idaho-based camp that was very powerful and moving and triggered a lot of the perception I had. And then after that, him and I came back to my place and we just talked, and he just I picked his mind about hempcrete and hemp building to every single degree, combined with the research that I had been doing.
Totally. So based on your research and just personal firsthand experience, what are some of the building applications that are being done now in the hemp industry, and what are you guys doing specifically at Hempitecture?
Yeah, Hempitecture really just focuses on insulation right now, but I think we're going to add a lot more.
Installation or insulation?
Insulation, like the materials to keep your building warm.
Yeah.
And that comes in two forms. It comes in hempcrete, which is a hemp lime composite that acts as insulation and infill, and it's installed similar to rammed earth and straw bale, or adobe, I should say, but it performs similar to straw bale. And that's a great product, and that's what we've built 6 structures with in the United States, and that's what's caught traction over in France and in the UK as well. And we also have a second product called hemp wool, and this is a product that we are the distributors for in North America, in the United States, and it's so much easier to use than hempcrete. It can go immediately in a wall cavity. Contractors don't need special training. It's got all of the standards and testing that building inspectors and building officials are looking for, and it's much cheaper. So we think that while the market is still waiting to adopt hempcrete, and the supply chains and the processing equipment is still coming online, hemp wool is a great way to make your house with a hemp building material, and a very effective material at that.
Would you say, well, first of all, how much hemp and how much is it sheep's wool or another type of wool?
No.
That they're using for that?
It's not sheep's wool. It is the hemp fiber and then polyester. And it's 92% hemp fiber grown from the long fiber of a hemp plant that, is not flowering, not a short CBD plant, but a closely densely grown plant for fiber. And 92% of that hemp fiber and 8% of the polyester is what binds it all together. It's a very resilient material. The big problem with insulation is it can sink inside the cavity. If you use fiberglass, fiberglass is liable to do that. And, there really aren't any other non-toxic, carbon-negative insulation products on the market. And so we want people to know about these products and make these choices, because I think if they did and they thought about what was going in the walls, they'd be much more conscientious about it.
Totally. So, what would you say are some of the most rewarding aspects of working with hemp for construction applications, whether it's working with this hemp wool insulation or going with the more popular hempcrete application? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's rewarding that people care and want to visit these projects, and these projects are special. I mean, we did at the Hemp Building Summit was relatively a very unimportant building structure. It was a small shed made with hempcrete panels and hemp wool in the ceiling. And people from all over the world, 200 at a time, toured this very, very tiny building to see those materials and use. And that's exciting. And that gets us energized, knowing that we're on something and that this won't be the end of the use of these materials.
Mm-hmm. So in what ways would you say it's superior to using standard building materials, whether it's sheetrock or cement or other building materials? How does this compare, and why would you say it's superior?
Yeah, I think it's superior for several reasons, and I would start with performance. So if you want to talk about building materials that don't catch on fire, like hempcrete is going to be able to fulfill that need and serve as a protecting firewall for basically any climate. And that's why we get a lot of interest from Northern California and places that were recently affected by these fires. You're going to get really high insulation value because it's a material that can basically behave as a passive insulator that can take on thermal mass during the day while it's receiving sunlight. It can hold that heat and disperse it at night to slow the heating and cooling highs and lows that take place over a day cycle. And the environmental impact is incredible. I mean, you talk about carbon sequestration, if that's a goal for your home construction, or if using natural materials that are renewable. I mean, calcium carbonate, the limestone, takes many, many years to form, but it's at least a very abundant surface on the Earth's crust, and then hemp can be domesticated and grown yearly locally. Usually there's people that want to use materials like that. And then there are people that just want to avoid the process stuff or the petrochemical stuff or the stuff that's going to be toxic or potentially off-gassing harmful VOCs. And this is a material that does that. And then I guess there are people that, sound absorption is a big factor for some people. But it's interesting. I wish there was one reason people said, oh, I definitely want hempcrete or hemp wool for this purpose. But people come to us with different stories and different explanations for why they want to choose this material.
Absolutely. So would you say that it's more cost effective at this point, or would it be a higher investment because it's still in the embryo stages of this industry developing, or do you anticipate prices coming down, and how does it compare to typical construction materials?
Yeah, I should be upfront. It's a higher investment for sure to build with hemp, whether it's hempcrete or hemp wool. And the reason for that, it's new. There are hurdles. The installation process is not perfected by contractors around the country. We personally have made a lot of steps and investments to speed up the installation process to make it, less error prone and more efficient. And we bought a machine that is able to install via projected hempcrete at 3 to 4 times faster than you would otherwise install hempcrete cast in place by hand.
Very cool. So you guys demonstrated it's like an aircrete. You spray it on versus by hand with buckets, right? So it speeds up that process. And
these are the innovations we expect to continue once the industry begins to develop more. When you think like the material costs, I mean, those are, who knows where those will go, because the supply chain really hasn't been set up in the United States. A lot of materials still being imported from Canada, imported from Europe, and that transport is being added to the cost.
China. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what have been some of the most challenging parts of working with hemp as a building material?
I think it's getting the awareness out there and getting it into more homes, because a lot of people can think it's a great idea to use hemp building materials a very small percentage of those people are actively making the decision to build in the near future. So it's about reaching those people, reaching those architects, reaching those developers, and making them, care about this choice that they make. The material you choose for your house is probably the most volume of material you buy in your entire lifetime. So it's a pretty meaningful choice when it comes to the impact you're going to have on the planet. And it's making people value that decision and care about it and realize that it's going to be a lifetime of living in a home or a building whose walls are made from materials you can feel good about.
Right. So you'd say one of the biggest challenges right now is education and raising awareness specifically to the people that are building homes, not just the consumer or the homeowner or the person that wants to build a house, but the people that are going to help them make that happen, whether it's contractors or construction workers, builders, architects. Those are the people that really need to be influenced the most right now, you think?
Exactly.
Are educated?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, I totally agree. So with that said, so do you feel like the education for these people that we just mentioned will result in the proper coding and certifications and things that most cities or counties would require for building a home, especially a green home? Mm-hmm. Would they kind of help us push those things forward?
No, I think that's going to come from somewhere else. I think the movement for certification and accreditation is going to come from an independent trade organization, hopefully, which is what the U.S. Hemp Building Association is, and I know is on their agenda of things is getting hempcrete into building code, getting the testing done so that we have documented performance data from inside the United States. Most of the testing is from overseas, and a lot of building inspectors are unwilling to work with that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we have projects where we do testing, and I think some of that will be able to be used in the public domain for getting the material into code and showing performance data. But I don't think architects or the developers will be, they want something that's shelf ready and doesn't add any more challenge to their day than the alternative that they're already.
So they're not the ones that are going to be out there lobbying or proving proof of concept or getting things certified. That's up to the trade organizations and the people like us that can help document the validity and then take it to these policy to the policy level to change these codes, basically, like you said, like an organization like the U.S. Hemp Building Association.
Yeah, and I have some hope in the universities. I mean, they're there to conduct research and collect data, and I think that a lot of them have come to us looking to research hempcrete, looking to do this exact type of testing, and I think eventually pretty soon something very well done and very definitive will come out of a research laboratory run by a university.
Most certainly, yeah. And I'm working closely with a junior college, which I mentioned to you. I won't go into it now, but they're very excited about the building applications, and we're already developing a curriculum to help, at least on a community level. It'll be community course, for community, like a certification, and this is a big part of what they want to do. So I know that, this is going to be much easier to get into the university or college courses than like cannabinoid. I know they're cannabinoids right now are a huge interest, but I know there's a lot of just hempnosis still on the distinction between medical, recreational, and industrial. And so I do see that happening much sooner, which is exciting. But to kind of segue or to go back a little bit to some of the biggest hurdles, other than education, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome or you're still working on overcoming in this industry?
Yeah, when you say you, I think of myself, and personally something is it's such a new industry with so much information flying around that I think from the very beginning, because I didn't have a building background and didn't really have a very strong hemp background, I almost felt like I was an imposter and someone who was pretending to be very knowledgeable about all this stuff, but had a very short background and history and experience with it all. and Maddie had a thorough one. And I think that's natural for now. I see more and more people coming into the movement, and they look at me as being someone who's had a longer history. And I've been on the most hemp building projects in North America in 2019. I'm pretty sure, because I've done all of Hempitectures, one in New Jersey, and then I also joined one in Quebec this summer. And so I have quite a wealth of experience. And I want people to feel like that it's not something that's going to be exclusive or something that's hard to join or hard to learn about, because it's actually quite basic and it's quite intuitive, a lot of this material.
Right.
Just studying. And so that was something that was personally had to be.
Cool. So would you say, like, how soon will we see the implementation, or I mean, like, there's probably been 5 to 10 hemp homes in North America built in the last 10 years or maybe 7 years. How fast do you see that growing? And, what sort of other locations do you see this happening, like, in the near future? And is it sort of reserved for only the upper echelon or very wealthy people, or do you see this being something that will be applicable to all levels of income?
That's interesting. I expect that the growth in number of homes will only ascend. I can't say for sure how fast that will happen. I think there's so many homes being built and so much insulation being installed that I think hempcretes, even if it just captured a small portion of that, you'd see exponential growth. Like from where we are now, it's such a small corner of the market. And then affordability and accessibility to hempcrete. I don't think, hempcrete is a superior and artisanal material. And so it makes sense that it does fetch a little bit of a higher price premium. But I also know that there's so much community enthusiasm around this material, and there's all these ADUs that are being rented for low income. There's tiny homes that are being given to the homeless, and all the inquiries that we get, or not all, but a large amount of inquiries we get, are for community housing projects and people that want to build with this material as a network of people, as a community. And I think that if they're willing to do that and they're willing to share the labor, that a lot of really affordable projects will get done, because it's a material that's easy to use, doesn't take too much training, but can be very labor intensive. Have motivated and willing people to provide this labor, then there's really no telling how many expensive your pay could get.
Right. So in the long run, we can essentially imagine that the cost of goods is going to go down. There's going to be a plethora of farmers in every single state growing hemp for fiber, and the biggest cost in the future is likely to be the labor cost, which obviously people can donate their time, especially people that want to build their own home. I know for myself, I want to get my hands dirty. I want to make sure I'm a part of that process, because it's although it could be labor intensive, it's not, you don't have to have as much knowledge, when it comes to like hammering and cutting and, nails and things like that. Just laying hempcrete, compacting it in these walls, it's really not that challenging, and pretty much anybody could do it, right?
Absolutely.
That's exciting. So we talked about the future. We talked about the anticipation of the cost of these hemp homes going down to make it more affordable, and obviously it's going to be more accessible. What are some of the top goals in the next 5 years that you guys have at Hempitecture?
I would love to see the production and the localization of the building materials. So the farms and hemp really being grown well and to a quality standard across the United States, so that projects can actually be built with local materials. And I would like to see production facilities in the United States, and that's a goal we have for Hempitecture, that we are a resource for finding out and using and learning and installing hemp building materials. But we could also become producers of these materials, or work very closely with independent manufacturers who are producers of these materials. And I'm looking forward where are these factories, where are these manufacturing and production facilities going to be, where are they going to live in America? Because I know they're coming. They're going to be making hempcrete insulation blocks. They're going to be making hemp wool.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be making hempcrete prefabricated panels and maybe
Mm-hmm.
hempcrete tops. And then hemp wood will become a product that is used widely in what we call building sites. So what happened for 5 years in the hemp building industry will look like, and it's just exciting to see what will come first and then how we'll all unfold.
Totally. So for you guys, it's specifically to help create a local market in different areas around the country, or possibly North America or globally at that. But 5 years probably more local, to have these processing facilities, manufacturing plants that are developing these construction materials, and whether you guys are doing it yourselves or partnering with strategic partners to bring these products to their local markets is a noble goal, and I'm totally backing you guys and looking forward to working with you on helping make that hemp vision come to fruition. So, so to kind of get into the nitty gritty, for those of our listeners that are like super excited and inspired like you and I to build our own hemp houses, if somebody wanted to build a hemp home, or even like a shed of sorts, in their backyard, or maybe an extension onto their home, what is the process that they would have to go through, depending on, the size of the project? If they just bought a piece of land and they're starting from scratch, I realize that's going to be different than maybe just doing a little small shed. But can you kind of go over what that process looks like maybe a 1, 2, 3 step process, or what would somebody do to start the process of building their own hemp home?
Yeah, I mean, we get people who are looking to use these materials in van renovations, and I'm actually helping someone with put hemp wool in their van that they're going to be driving across country. And so there's all these different ways to incorporate these materials into projects, whether it's countertops, pottery, plants, or insulation. And we work, even though some of these orders or some of these customers are really not ordering much material, we work to make sure it's happening just so this material can get in use in our country. But
that's a great point.
If you want to do hempcrete, you can just have hemp, lime, and water. And we source all three of we don't source water, but we source hemp and lime, and we could ship those to any job site in America. So for people who are trying to do their own projects, we provide them materials quite often, and instruction and guidance and training on YouTube that's available. We have a whole hemp learning building series on YouTube that we did at the Highland Hemp House last summer in Bellingham.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the hemp wool. That's a product that doesn't take as much of your own handcraft to use, but it's very easy to incorporate that if you're just adding insulation to a building, or you want to add a little more insulation to your attic, or the basement.
So you wouldn't need to get that signed off by a code enforcement officer or the city if you just wanted to add something into your home. I love that you're saying this, because it gives people an entry-level position to maybe just make a little dividing wall or something, or maybe, like you said, something mobile in like a motorhome, or it could be any number of projects, even an art piece with hempcrete, just to get used to working with this material.
Yeah. Someone contacted me this week who wants to do a mural on hempcrete to increase awareness. Oh, and that was the person who was from Ashland, Oregon, where it all began.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great. So we've talked about hemp wool. We've talked about hempcrete, spraying, the spraycrete application. What sort of innovations do you see coming in the future, as it relates to specifically building with hemp? Or do you anticipate things that people haven't even thought of, or whether it's maybe hemp plastic applications or other things that could be used in building that nobody's even thought of, or have you guys put much thought into that at this point?
Yeah, we always try and think of the future and what the next step's going to be. And I think when it comes to hemp, I think there will be different products like hemp wood, hemp flooring. We'll see all types of different new building materials that are sourced from hemp. But I also think that with the improvements in the existing hempcrete and hemp wool materials with regards to installation and how easily these materials can be adopted and how simple they can make the building process, because quality is important, but as is time, and construction is on a tight schedule, and the cost of building in the United States seems to be increasing. And so I'm interested to see the different shapes and forms that hempcrete blocks come in. Are they going to be structural? Are they going to be interlocking? I mean, we have ideas and things going around for all of this, and have been working on helping advance that. But I'm curious to see which products actually went out and where the best designs come from.
Most certainly. Man, well, you've been a wealth of information and knowledge. I really appreciate you coming on HempAware Radio, and we may have a follow-up interview, in the next couple months once things get a little more developed. And obviously, I want to document our hemp home building when that comes to pass. But for our listeners that want to learn more or get more involved, what are some resources? You had mentioned a YouTube channel. Maybe you could reiterate some of the valuable resources that are out there that our listeners can benefit from, including your website and whatever else you think is important to mention.
Yeah. I hate to just promote us, but I know that we're putting things out there specifically for the people who want to learn more and get involved in this material and this movement. So Hempitecture, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We show off projects, we show off the material in use in different scenarios. If you go to our YouTube page, you'll see us using the equipment. You'll see us doing a how-to tutorial series. You'll see Maddie campaigning and lobbying for hemp building materials. There's a lot of wealth of information there. And we actually have content training, so people can come out to Idaho and get trained on how to install the material and get their hands dirty and become certified to install and build with confidence.
That's fantastic. And then one other organization that was helping put together the Hemp Summit is the U.S. Hemp Building Association, which is ushba.org, which is going to be it is already a trade organization, association that's going to be raising awareness, educating, and working in collaboration with the likes of Hempitecture and HempAware and my company, Bulk Hemp Warehouse, where we also offer hemp hurd and other really awesome materials such as hemp board that you can build with. But I really appreciate you coming on today's show and look forward to making it hemping with you and your team over at Hempitecture. Thanks again for coming on.
We'll be there. I mean, building a house for someone's always a pretty awesome experience, so I hope we actually get to do that together.
Totally. And any final thoughts that you want to share with the listeners, or just something to leave them with, or maybe any action steps that you would encourage them to take?
Take care of yourself. Be well. Always look for new and better products out there that could make our planet a little cleaner and better for the next people to come after us.
Amen. Thanks so much for tuning in to HempAware Radio. This is your Hemptrepreneurial host, Tyler Hemp. Look forward to having you on the next Hempisode. Feel free to share this on your social networks. Get the word out. Let people know what's possible with hemp homes, and let's make it hemping together. Peace out, everyone. Thanks again, Tommy.
Thanks, Tyler.